breaking barriers and bridging the gaps between patients and doctors. Welcome to Brainstorming with the Docs and your co-hosts, Dr. Glenn Harrison and Dr. Kolby Condos.
All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Brainstorming with the Docs. I'm Dr. Kolby Condos, my co-host and good friend, Dr. Glenn Harrison. How's it going, bud?
I'm doing good. How are you on this fine evening?
It's good, man. It's going to sleep has been a little bit few and far between because we're trying this new sleep training protocol with
for you or the little one.
No, I'm already trained on my sleep protocol. He's already got me like hammered down. Like, I'm awake. You're going to be awake too. I'm hungry. Feed me.
Oh,
so I'm already trained. We're trying to use the old reverse psychology and get him to sleep more than a couple hours at a time. So it's been a little stressful, but I think we're going to round a corner here shortly. So I'm feeling optimistic. How about yourself? How's things going with you?
It's going good. Off to a new start and new objectives and everything. So that's great. New projects, new strategies, new failures. It's just living life. So it's good. It's good. There's a lot moving. There's a lot happening.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, especially as we get rolling. When this airs, it won't be the new year, but it is right now. Yeah. So I think that as we take time and reflect back on what we did well and, things that we'd like to improve on, I think that's it's kind of a refreshing time. I feel like when you look at what you've done well, what you don't do well, and you really reflect back on that, then you're able to see where you want to go and what you want to achieve in the future and how you're going to get there because you know what didn't work. That's
right. I think it creates opportunity if you're optimistic about it. So it's been good. Lots happening. And I'm looking forward to the topic. Kind of an interesting thing when we were doing a little bit of research on this. I didn't even realize some of the things. Characteristics of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about cold sores. When we first started talking about this, it's because I had a patient that came in. They were super concerned about it, and rightfully so. And it kind of sparked an idea where I was like, you know what? This is something that affects tons of people. Maybe they don't know as much about it as they should, or maybe we can provide some insights. Maybe we can get them some strategies that'll help manage it and maybe make them more aware of some things that they should be doing as far as precautions and things that they should look out for. So, first off, so what is a cold sore, right? A cold sore is, in most people, like a sore on their lip, and it's actually caused by a herpes virus, not to be confused with the other type of herpes virus. This is herpes simplex virus 1 most of the time, not always. But what it does is it's a virus that actually will follow a certain nerve root or nerve distribution, and it lays dormant in what's called in a dorsal root ganglia. So the virus is always there, and it's an opportunistic infection. So whenever it gets the opportunity, it kind of rear its ugly head, and then you get kind of a big sore on your lip.
Yeah. So kind of to recap that, it's a viral infection that never goes away completely. It sits dormant. You might not experience a symptom, but it sits dormant in the nerve chain, and then it jumps out when it has the opportunity. Right.
Yep, you got it.
So that's what it is. It's really, you could call it a flare of symptoms, and some of the common ones that can be really very painful, tingling, before the blister. So there's some neurological symptoms at that location, usually before the blister.
Yeah, it'll feel like, it kind of depends on the person, but either burning or numbness and tingling. Like, people know generally, before they get a cold sore that they're going to get a cold sore.
That's right. And then after a while, there's a blister, and it's followed by an open sore, tender, painful, sensitive, etc. So that's really what it is. Want to run through some causes of the viral flare.
Yeah, when you look at it, when you look at some of the factors that can cause this thing to flare up, like we talked about, it's an opportunistic infection. So if you have any other sort of infection, any sort of co-infection that's causing an immune response, and maybe it's a chronic thing and your immune system is run down a little bit, then that thing's going to flare up and you're going to get it, right?
Anything that's creating immunosuppression or an immune, like I like to call immune distraction. Your body's fighting something else.
Yep. That can cause it. When you look at other things, and this, you can go down the rabbit hole on how this affects the immune system as well. but stress is a big one, right? So people who are really stressed at their job or with work or with their family life, and it can be even something as like they're exercising too much. Any sort of stress can bring this on if you have excessive amounts of it. Sleep deprivation is a big one. So if you're not getting your rest, rest is really important. We've talked about this in previous podcasts about how important it is, because that's when the restorative processes go in your body is during, sleep. And then any sort of, I think that the biggest one that I've seen in my practice is at least with environmental exposure. And that could be something like the sun, if you get a really bad sunburn, or even like wind exposure. I grew up in Wyoming where it's very, very, very windy. And the winter months when it's really cold and the wind's blowing really, really hard, you're going to see a lot of cold sores when you have that type of exposure as well.
I see other variations of the virus, like zoster or zooster and genital and all of that. I'll see the effects of it the same way: immunosuppression, some cold illness, etc., or immune distraction. So if there's an stress, like you're saying, or something else, and then these people have a viral flare, and then this is a virus we're talking about is a cold sore, but there's other ones, and it's this herpesvirus and different types of herpesvirus sitting in the nerve chain, and I think that's very important. People need to know, because what would you tell somebody? I know we're kind of a tangent here. I'm introducing a bit of a tangent in our conversation, but if you have a patient that has a cold sores, a flare, what would you ask them? You would probably ask them, what's going on in your life? Have you been feeling? How are you sleeping? To try to understand why did they have an episode?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have you been outside a lot? Where you ice fishing's big here in Minnesota. We were out ice fishing when it was negative 25,
Yeah.
Have you been super stressed at work? Did you just get over some other illness and your immune system's depressed or whatever? So I think that, yeah, you have to consider like comorbidities, right? Something that's going to cause, or something that can contribute to the flare as well.
That's right, because they want to know how to control it. So if someone is dealing with this and, it's reoccurring, well, again, you can go down the rabbit hole of anything that's an immune suppression, sleep deprivation, etc., or something that's irritating the immune system, a food, a chemical, sun specifically. We talked about sun. So anything regarding the immune system to optimize it is probably going to be beneficial to keeping these under control. Fewer and fewer flares. Now, another thing I know, something I didn't know. I didn't know its level of how contagious it was. When you brought that up, it kind of
it's very contagious. So when you look at like the cold sore, right? One of the first things is they're like, don't use other people's chapstick, don't share water bottles, don't kiss anybody, don't, you have to be very, very cautious, very contagious. You can give it to other people. Actually, there's some, I can't remember where I read it, but I believe there was a study that like there's been a high prevalence of like mothers passing it to their infants because, they don't really understand how like, contagious it is. And, everyone loves a baby. So you're kissing, loving everything on the baby. And then all of a sudden the baby has a cold sore. So it's very contagious. Got to be very cautious. Don't share water bottles, chapstick, lipstick, any of that stuff. Don't kiss anybody. And I think that the biggest thing, if you are suffering from a cold sore, I think that there's kind of a stigma about it. It's not, there's nothing you can do about it. The best you can do is manage it and just try to be as responsible as you can. But again, avoiding really close contact because you want to try to avoid giving it to anybody else. I actually saw a case in my clinic where I highly suspected that it was like a cold sore that had been shared from somebody to an infant, and it actually had followed like a different dermatomal pattern. So it wasn't necessarily on the lip, but it followed it onto the face. And it was actually from like a family member kissing the infant when they had a cold sore.
Wow.
So got to be very careful about that, especially with those younger people who haven't developed this overly potent immune system yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And so someone's listening to this and, we'll just kind of cut to the chase, the mechanisms of a cold sores, where they come from, what aggravates them. But what are some of the big things that you can do? Well, we know about antivirals. So if you go see your primary medical doctor, there's going to be some strategies for, antiviral medication, very effective. There are some side effects naturally with antivirals, but what are some of the other things? You talked about sun sun exposure, covering up your face if you are, I don't know, if you are a candidate of it, or if you are at risk of developing them. What else would you tell people to do?
I would say like staying hydrated is,
Mm-hmm.
going to be important. I would also say that, again, like you just talked about, limiting risks. If you're going to be out fishing, make sure you have like a sun mask on. If you're going to be out in the wind, make sure you have a face mask on. If you're going to be in the sun, make sure you put sunscreen on or cover up. The other aspects that I would definitely recommend from like maybe a more natural approach would be looking at things that support your immune system. So doing things like, vitamin D. There's some certain things that have antiviral properties that I've actually used for other viruses that, are dormant viruses that can cause reinfections. Things like lysine, I've seen that can help when applied like topically. So on the actual skin, that can help. Zinc would be another one that I'd recommend. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can do.
There's a few. I don't know if there's any research behind vitamin A in it, and these viral flares. I'm assuming anything that can try to, promote immune function is going to be beneficial. I would assume, because if you have a strong enough immune system, I always like to say whether it's shingles or cold sores or, all the other herpesviral strains, you want to keep them under the carpet. You want to keep them down, and the immune system keeps everything, hidden and away and not causing a problem, keeping it dormant. And then when the immune system breaks down or becomes dysfunctional or distracted or exhausted, that's when there's a higher chance of these viral flares and then the discomfort with it. A lot of these nutraceuticals are effective. I see it all the time. I've never used lysine in a topical, but I imagine that would be great. But usually I'll prescribe it in capsules and stuff like that. But it's never, let's just take lysine. No, it's like, let's load up on everything we can if it's a problem. And hopefully with a shotgun approach, we'll assist.
Well, it's not going to get rid of it, but it might shorten the duration.
Yeah. And have less reoccurring outbreaks, if you will. There's also something to know about lysine. It has its antagonist, which is arginine. And, if you take lots of lysine, you will reduce your arginine levels, but it's not like you're going to live on lysine. But if you're loaded with supplements for whatever the reason, you have lots of arginine, you probably should stop arginine because lysine will inhibit it. If you're taking arginine and you start taking lysine, your lysine is not going to be very effective.
Right. So and that's when it's useful to have someone like you or myself that knows like these kind of intermediate steps to help kind of guide you guys.
That's right.
Guide the patient,
Yeah. And I think nutraceuticals are very beneficial, very helpful. But if people wrong dose, not enough is a big thing, or too much, maybe they cause a problem, or not knowing how they react with one another. And really, you buy all these things. We talked about nutraceuticals. We had a podcast just on, supplementation, good, bad, and the ugly. That was quite a while back, I believe. But yeah, a high quality product, you're going to spend good money for it. You want to make sure it's going to work or have the best chance of it working.
Yep.
So, you got to have some guidance with it to do it right. And then you can be confident, is it working or is it not working? Versus, operator error.
Right. Am I doing something wrong, or is it not doing what's intended? So
that's right.
Well, I hope you guys got value out of this. It's kind of short, sweet, and to the point, but I feel like it's maybe something that some people had questions about. If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can always reach out to us at our email, which is info@brainstormingwiththedocs.com. You can look on our websites. Mine is northlakeschiropractic.com. Dr. Glenn's is drgharrison.com. Or you can, write a comment in the comment section and we'll do our best to respond to that. If you got value out of it, please hit like and subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this information with your friends, family, and loved ones, or anyone that you feel like might get benefit out of it, because we're going to do our absolute best to continue to roll out topics that are useful to you guys, information that you guys are looking for. And yeah, stay tuned, because you never know when we might roll out with something that's applicable to you.
Sounds good, Dr. Kolby. I look forward to the next one.
Sounds good.
Enjoy ice fishing.
Yeah. All right.